My name is Elena Sharpi. I'm 34, a senior advisor for aerospace procurement at the Department of Defense. And tomorrow, I'll sit across from my father and brother in a classified joint contractor review in Huntsville, Alabama. They have no idea I'm the official with the authority to greenlight or shut down their entire project. 7 years ago, I walked out of this house for the last time, suitcase in hand, after one final dinner where my decision to serve in government was dismissed as a waste. My father had scoffed that federal jobs were for people who couldn't cut it in the real world. That was the last honest thing he said to me. Tonight, I've come back for dinner. My mother will brag about Ethan's latest promotion. My father will glow with pride. Someone will ask if I'm still at that little government office in D.C. I won't correct them. I won't explain. Because tomorrow, when their CEO introduces me as Miss Sharpi, Senior Defense Liaison, and hands me the briefing packet with my name on the cover, the silence will say everything. Let them believe whatever they want tonight. Tomorrow changes the story. The driveway was smaller than I remembered. My government-issued sedan barely squeezed between the cracked garden bed and the rusting mailbox. I turned off the engine and sat for a moment. My hands were steady, professional, but my stomach turned the way it always does before a high-level briefing. The porch light flickered, casting a warm glow over the weathered doorframe and the bless this mess mat that somehow survived all these years. I rang the bell. Habit. Elena. My mom called from inside. It's open. Of course it was. It always was. I stepped into the lavender haze of air freshener and memory. The photo wall hadn't changed. Ethan's MBA ceremony, his engagement, his kids. Not a single photo of me. Not even the official portrait from the secretary's office. Dinner's almost ready, Mom said, eyes fixed on the stovetop. Ethan and Rachel are bringing wine. Oh, and he just got another promotion. I smiled. That's great, Mom. Be sure to toast him. He's heading up strategic ops now. Everyone says he's really going places. That phrase used to sting. Now, it barely registered. The table was set for 6. No name cards, but the hierarchy was unmistakable. Ethan at the head, Dad to his right, Mom tucked between them, me, off to the side, neatly out of frame. Ethan and Rachel arrived at exactly 6 p.m. Punctual as always. He wore a tailored blazer, casual enough to look effortless, sharp enough to signal power. Rachel handed over a bottle of boutique wine no one actually liked, but everyone would pretend to enjoy. Hey, Elena, Ethan said, giving me a one-armed hug, already glancing toward Dad. Been a while. 7 years, I replied evenly. He hesitated, unsure if I was exaggerating. I wasn't. Dinner was roast chicken, scalloped potatoes, and Mom's familiar Caesar salad. Ethan steered the conversation with the polish of someone used to being listened to. Updates on cross-functional leadership. A new defense initiative. Whispers about the VP track. Dad looked like he could burst with pride. And you? Mom asked, smiling just a little too brightly. Still doing that job in D.C. I took a sip of water. Something like that. Moved up at all, or still mid-level? Dad asked, eyes still on his plate. Something like that, I said again. Must be tough, Ethan offered. Faux sincere. No big picture work, right? Just executing what the real decision-makers come up with? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My DoD badge was zipped in the inside pocket of the suitcase upstairs, along with the uniform bearing my GS-15 insignia, marking me as the senior executive in charge of federal oversight for their contract. Tomorrow, they'd find out just how much big picture I own. For now, I let them talk. Let them bask in their certainty. It would be the last time I sat at that table in silence. Later, I found myself in my childhood bedroom, perched on the edge of the same narrow bed. The quilt hadn't changed, neither had the walls, still lined with trophies, AP certificates, college acceptance letters, every artifact of the version of me they once admired. Before I won the ROC scholarship. After that, I became the cautionary tale, the one who wasted her promise. None of my career milestones hung on these walls, not one. To them, I'd disappeared. Until tomorrow. I wasn't the daughter who lost her way. I was the woman who rewrote it. I was the daughter who, in their eyes, squandered her future. Downstairs, Their laughter rose like smoke, Dad's booming bark. Mom's murmured affirmations. Ethan's self-assured voice coasting on another victory lap. It was the sound of legacy being passed cleanly, confidently, to its chosen heir. I'd grown numb to it, but tonight, the irony made me smile. Ethan had just been promoted to lead the integration team for the very military contract I'd been assigned to evaluate. They had no idea. At 0900 tomorrow, I would walk into Falcon Systems HQ in Huntsville, dressed in full uniform, and brief the executive board as the Department of Defense's lead liaison for Project Meridian. I would dissect, line by line, the framework Ethan had just boasted about over mashed potatoes. Upstairs, I opened my suitcase. Inside, folded with precision, was my uniform, midnight blue with regulation trim, tailored to fit rank and responsibility. My ribbons gleamed. The silver eagle on my collar caught the lamplight. I polished each button slowly, methodically, with the cloth I always kept for briefings. This wasn't about bitterness. This was about precision, command, discipline, and finally, unavoidably, being seen. The next morning, I arrived 15 minutes early. The Falcon Systems parking lot pulsed with motion, executives pacing on calls, assistants juggling binders and coffee. I slid into the reserved space. DoD Senior Liaison, authorized personnel only. I stepped out, straightened my collar. Conversations slowed, eyes followed. "Good morning, Colonel Sharpi," the guard said, scanning my clearance badge. Inside, I bypassed reception. I'd memorized the floor plan weeks ago, no time for hesitation. The elevator opened directly onto the executive level. The first person I saw was Ethan. He stood at a touchscreen display, casually flipping through slide decks. He looked up. His expression faltered. "Elena, what are you wearing?" I didn't break stride. "Good morning, Mr. Sharpi. I'm here for the Project Meridian review." Behind him, our father's voice carried, deep and authoritative, mid-sentence with two men in matching tailored suits. Then came the pivot point. Mara Kensington, Falcon Systems CEO, turned the corner. Her sharp white bob and crisp navy pantsuit gave her the air of controlled acceleration. She paused when she saw me, then smiled. "Colonel Sharpi, I wasn't aware you'd be attending in person." "A pleasure, ma'am," I said, shaking her hand firmly. "I was in town, thought it best to attend today's session myself." "You elevate any room you walk into," she said with genuine warmth, then turned to the gathering crowd. "For those not yet introduced," she said, her voice cutting clean through the room, "this is Colonel Elena Sharpi, Pentagon Liaison for Project Meridian. She holds final approval authority for all military interface components." Silence fell, compressed, sharp-edged. I didn't glance at my brother. I didn't need to. Mara and I entered the boardroom side by side. My name was already printed on the placard at the head of the table. I took my seat. One by one, the room filled, engineers, project leads, compliance officers, each greeting me with quiet deference. Some looked surprised at my age, others, at my rank, but no one questioned either, not with the eagle on my shoulder. Ethan and my father entered last. They took seats at the far end, expressions neutral, movements measured. At 0900 sharp, Mara opened the session. "We're honored to have Colonel Sharpi joining us today," she said. Her prior guidance has already refined several key aspects of our security protocols. I stood. My briefing was direct. I outlined revisions to the system's architecture, flagged risk indicators, and laid out revised phase gate benchmarks. I invited input. I took none lightly. Then Ethan stood. "As lead on systems integration, I've been coordinating phase 2, he said. "I believe we're on track to meet the metrics outlined." I nodded. "Mr. Sharpi, can you walk us through how your strategy addresses the latency thresholds listed in the May 14th DoD memo?" He blinked. I'll need to revisit that section." "You will," I said, my tone cool and professional. "The metrics are non-negotiable. Please revise your draft and resubmit by COB Thursday." "Yes, ma'am," he said, quieter than I'd ever heard him. The room held its breath for half a second, then moved on. I returned to the agenda, asked follow-ups, made note of outstanding items, my voice steady, my presence grounded. I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. When we adjourned at noon, Mara stood again. Colonel Sharpi will remain on site through tomorrow, she said. Please provide her full cooperation. This contract is critical to both national security and our continued partnership with the Department of Defense. As the room emptied, I felt the shift in the air, something subtle but absolute. The way people looked at me had changed. No more second-guessing, no more polite dismissal. Recognition had replaced assumption. I hadn't demanded this authority. I had earned it. Through the glass wall, I saw my father standing alone in the hallway, motionless. No words, just a man faced, for the first time, with the daughter he never saw coming. He looked like a man who'd expected applause, and instead got a verdict. Elena, he said once we were alone, voice unsteady but still trying to sound firm. We need to talk. I nodded. Your office? He hesitated, then led me down the hall. Inside, the air felt stale. Mom sat stiffly in a visitor's chair. Ethan stood by the window, arms crossed, bracing for impact. They lined up like the tribunal of my childhood. I didn't sit. I stood at ease, calm, grounded. How long have you been a colonel? Dad asked. 6 months, I said. 6 months, he echoed, more to himself than me. And you didn't tell us? I did, I replied. Sent invitations, left voicemails, shared articles. You never responded. He searched for a reply, but Mom interrupted. We didn't understand what it meant. Colonel sounds important, but why didn't you explain? Because I stopped needing your permission to succeed. Ethan frowned. We thought you were stuck, just transferring bases, floating. I looked at him. Last night you laughed, said military folks just follow orders. He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know you were doing all this. You never asked, I said. Mom reached for her bag, then stopped. Elena, I don't know what to say. We should have been there. Your commissioning, promotions, ceremonies. I thought you were shutting us out. No, I said. I just stopped waiting for you to show up. The silence was taut, necessary. Dad cleared his throat. So, what do you want now? Public recognition? A profile in the company newsletter? I shook my head. I want what I've always earned, respect. For my work, my choices, for not failing simply because I didn't follow your version of success. Ethan stepped from the window, subdued. You reviewed my report today. You were fair. Didn't embarrass me. I wasn't there to embarrass anyone, I said. I was there to do my job. He nodded. It was impressive. Honestly, you were commanding. His words might have been the first real compliment I'd ever heard. Dad rose but stayed still. You've built something we don't understand. That's on us. We thought we knew better. His voice cracked slightly. We didn't. For the first time, I heard humility, not regret, but the start of understanding. He extended his hand, not ceremonially, but with quiet sincerity. Colonel Sharpi, he said low, I owe you an apology. I underestimated you completely. I took his hand, firm, without resentment. I accept. Mom blinked hard, then stood. We'd like to try again, if you'll let us. One step at a time, I said. And for the first time in years, I believed it might be possible. 6 months later, my Washington, D.C. apartment was quiet but full. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the PTOAC. Bookshelves lined with cybersecurity manuals, ribbons, and a few framed commendations. Not too much, just enough. That evening, my family joined me for dinner, for once, at my table, on my terms, in my city. Dad arrived first, carrying a framed magazine article. Figured you might want a copy, he said. It was a Defense Today feature on Project Meridian, my photo center stage, in full dress uniform, between General Armstrong and Mara Kensington. He handed it over like it was precious. I've had it up in my office for months, he admitted, eyes briefly flicking away. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Mom arrived next, carrying a warm pie. Apple, she smiled tentatively. Still your favorite, right? I waited. She glanced around my clean, minimalist space. You were always so organized, she said softly. I don't know how you keep it this way. I almost said military training, but held back. She was trying. That was enough. Ethan and his wife came last, bringing a sleek bottle of wine and crystal glasses. After dinner, as dishes clinked and conversation softened into peace, Ethan pulled me aside. "I used the rollout model you suggested," he said. "The team pushed back at first, but it's working better." "Did you tell them where it came from?" He smirked. "Eventually, after I let them think I was brilliant for a while." I smiled. "As long as it works." He nodded. "It does, and so do you. You really have it together." "You've never said that before." "No, I haven't," he admitted, "but I'm saying it now." Across the room, Dad studied my medals. His eyes lingered on one, the cyber defense citation I earned after stopping a federal breach. "I read about that one," he said softly. "Didn't realize it was you." "It was." He nodded. "No words needed." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. But it was real. Later, as coffee brewed and we shared pie, Dad raised his glass. "To Colonel Elena Sharpi," he said, "who proved worth isn't found in following someone else's path, but in walking your own." We raised our glasses. In that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Recognition, not obligation, not pity. Respect, the earned kind, the lasting kind. And I realized the most important thing. The victory wasn't them seeing me. It was that I never stopped becoming me, without needing their permission. If this story resonates, if you've ever been underestimated or told your path wasn't enough, drop a comment. Tell me where you are in your journey. I read every one. And if you believe in rising quietly and proving loudly, subscribe. Keep building, even when no one's watching. Because the strength you're growing now? One day, it'll walk into the room before you even do.